Good evening, everyone, and I'm very conscious that I'm standing between you and a glass of wine, so I'll be as brief and to the point as I possibly can be. So, just to introduce to you who CYBG is, Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank may be brands that are more familiar to you. We're a retail and SME bank. We're a very old bank. We were established more than 175 years ago. To give you a sense of scale, we've got about 170 outlets, which has been quite dramatically reduced over the last year. We've got about 32 billion of assets on our balance sheet and loans and about 32 billion of deposits. We're almost exactly match funded at the moment. About 3 million customers, retail and SME. So we're a business that is a full product provider, quite different to a lot of the new neobanks. We actually do all of the types of things that, a Lloyds and HSBC and RBS would do. So the full range of clearing and payment services, mortgages, personal loans, SME banking, etc., etc. So we're an old but elegant business. And today I want to cover very briefly the journey we've been on to modernise our business and take it through what I hope you will find is a really interesting digital transformation. We started this journey about 2.5, 3 years ago. It was triggered by the fact that our parent group, National Australia Bank, had decided that they were going to let us loose and we were going to IPO and demerge the business. And we got a fantastic opportunity. The business had been quite underinvested, very traditional, very trusting and loyal customer base, but it had been quite underinvested in terms of new digital capability. So what happened is we got the opportunity to do this deal. That allowed us to go to our investors and our new shareholders and convince them to back the bank. And we got together a pretty significant amount of investment that would transform right throughout our business to the tune of 350 million that we've now just about completely spent over the last 2 to 3 years. So we IPO'd the business in February 2016. We went out with a market cap of about 1.6 billion, and in the period between then and now, our market cap's just over 3 billion. So we've had a really successful business transformation, and I believe that the changes we've made digitally have really been at the heart of a lot of what we've done. So you'll have heard a lot about what's happening today and right throughout, I'm sure, the last year or two about the way that customers' expectations are changing significantly. Our two previous speakers talked a lot about expectations, and banking in the retail and SME sector is certainly not immune. Lots of new competitors coming in, lots of really interesting competitive pressure from non-traditional banks. We've listed a few of those, but also a lot of different strategies and business models coming into banking, peer-to-peer lending, etc., etc. So we had to think very carefully about, when we were looking at what was happening in technology, how were we going to set this strategy up for a successful transformation. Regulation, really, really interesting. I'll talk about that in a minute. For those of you who have been involved in banking and financial services, you will have been immersed in significant regulation, but it's all about tightening, actually, and what's happened in the last few months with open banking, PSD2 regulation, CMA9 regulation. Really interesting because it's actually the first time that regulation is loosening the market and potentially, in my view, making it more open to non-traditional competitors to come in, and if banks aren't careful, really take a march on some of their customers. So we worked out that data, connecting customers with true experiences, and really trying to take the lead from big tech. They are creating the benchmark now that consumers expect from a bank. We really believed that if we sat tight and we didn't make quite fundamental changes in the way that we ran our technology shop and the way that we positioned our organisation, we would very significantly lose out. So we looked very carefully at what our customers were telling us. The previous two speakers have already covered this. The change in people's expectation of how they want to bank was incredible. 46% of our customers use only digital channels now from where we were 2, 3, 4 years ago. That's an enormous shift. You can see that millennials just think, why on earth would you do anything different? The take-up and the change in smart banking and just expectations, customer expectations, has changed enormously. For those of you deeply involved in the financial services, you will heard a lot about open banking and PSD2 regulation and lots of concern about particularly the security aspects. My personal view for PSD2 is I think there are some really significant challenges in that regulation and some very interesting unintended consequences. But actually, in open banking, for me, this is the first time that you put data really where it should be, and that's firmly in the customer's hands. And for me, the people who will win out of this are the ones who can think about how does that enable a joined up set of experiences that are much more like what people expect from an Amazon, a Google. They now set the benchmark for what people expect, and why should banks be any different? So, our journey. So Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank are very traditional brands, and when we thought about this journey, we felt that we had to come up with a new digital brand that had a different tone of voice, that had a different look and feel. So we created B. Quite deliberately, we didn't really talk a lot about B being part of Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank. We wanted to create a degree of separation so that we could create a different tone of voice and a different set of experiences, because we wanted to test and learn, and we didn't want to go with something that would feel so different to our existing customers. We were worried about how that would balance out. Now, actually, the feedback we've had from so many of our customers in B is that they actually want the security and they want the depth and strength and reliability of an existing brand. So now we position B as powered by Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank. And actually, one of the previous questions was about security. What's fascinating is that customers' feedback on the new digital brand is much more positive when they realise it's tethered to an existing customer established brand that, very interestingly, has a physical presence. So while security is really about apps and technology, what really changed customers' minds, interestingly, was, you have an outlet. And when we really tried to get beneath that, what they actually said to us, I want to be able to do all this stuff, but I want to know if it doesn't work, or I lose my card, or I have a disaster, I can actually walk in somewhere and see a human being. Now, they might never do it, and I think this will change, actually. And the previous speaker was talking about the pace of change, and I agree that this is going to really speed up. But right now, more than 80% of our customers told us that they would not consider changing bank to just simply a digital brand in banking. They just didn't feel confident enough yet. So that was something that we thought about. So we repurposed quite a few of our outlets B. We've been clear that we are a full clearing bank, but we took the people who we asked to develop B, the new banking app, and we actually physically put them somewhere else. So we took them out the confines of traditional banking. We put the software engineers, the creative designers, the true people who really understand UX, because for someone who's worked in a bank for 21 years, bankers keep telling you they understand UX. I can tell you they don't, right? And if they tell you they do, they're fibbing. So you really have to get some new people in. They also tell you a lot about omni-channel and products and all the rest of it. They don't really understand that either, actually. They're pretty awful at it. So you really do have to create that fusion of really good consumer banking experience with new thinking on customer journeys, on true UX, on really getting beneath, the previous two speakers have talked about this. So that for us was, we put these people, we put the customer call center agents, we put all the people who would deal with customers together with the people who did the development. And we did one really smart thing that in my sort of 25 years plus of banking, we don't often do as bankers. We truly trusted customer feedback. Because I've been in lots of occasions where we do customer testing, and then we all work out a reason why the customers weren't really right, and the bankers knew much better, of course, right? So we actually did every single week live demo testing feedback sessions with real customers. And by the way, some of the feedback was quite brutal. Some of it was really surprising. And we made a commitment that we were going to listen, and we were actually going to change our development strategies to be true to what they actually said. And we still are doing that, by the way. NPS for Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank, which is pretty good compared to some of our larger competitors, is probably around between 17, 20, 21, and that's quite good for a bank. B, as a brand, regularly NPS scores in excess of 45. So, you can see that if you really are committed to making this work, you can make a difference. So, B, whilst it is a bank, it does everything that you would expect a bank to do. It's got full payment capability. It does check digitization. It does all of that stuff. It does some other stuff too. It does things like connect you to services that might be useful. It doesn't push product, and that's really important. It thinks about experiences, and it tries to help you usefully join up things that might actually save you time. Because the thing that customers overwhelmingly told us is that when I deal with a bank, they drive me mad because I just want an immediate response, a quick answer, an easy answer, something that I can understand, and it just takes forever. So we are really focused here on people's time being way more important than the agent's time or the branch staff's time, or the time to provide an answer for us was really at the centre of getting those NPS scores up. Now, the technology challenge shouldn't be underestimated. For those of you, again, who have been around banking, we were no different. We've got core banking legacy applications, and we had, a lot of investment to make and a lot of time, energy, and money to make this work for us. Where we started is we started with data. On the previous slide, you'll see data is the new oil. It's a phrase that you'll have heard a lot. I mean, I think it's fantastic because one of the things that we invested heavily in is actually combining all of our data. And we started there because we realized that all of these apps and services are, they're all great. And even if you're really good at UX, if it doesn't do reliably what you need, it turns the customer off. So heavily invested in real-time trusted data and insight, and that was combining it all in the one place. We thought about interaction management, which is really about customers want you to know what you previously did, even if it's in another channel. So customers want you to know that I started my personal loan application online. I got fed up because you asked me a hard question I couldn't understand. I want to be able to walk into the branch. I've already completed half the app. I want you to pick it up, and I want you to not put me through the whole thing again. Okay, so that was really important. The only way you can do that is if all of your, not just data is recorded, but your interactions with your clients are recorded. And then finally, what we did is we invested significant effort into creating a microservices layer that, very importantly, gives you proper omni-channel. Now again, lots of banks talk about omni-channel. What they actually have done is replicated services across multiple channels and made them feel the same. That's okay until you follow out the process. Okay, and nearly all of the time in banking, because it gets quite complicated, customers follow out the process, and that's where it doesn't go well. So we've done a lot of thinking as well about what do we do and who do we partner with. Having been with the organisation a long time, lots of people in banking always think they know better than everyone else. So it is quite a cultural change to get people to work with partners who maybe do things better, and providing reasons to connect services really well for customers was a really interesting journey. And some of this, by the way, the fintech buzz is, in my experience, not necessarily all it's cracked up to be, because, banking, security, some of this stuff's really hard, and some of these players just aren't yet able to interact with you in the way that you need them to. But I think if you go into it with what can we take and what can we learn and how can we exchange, and you really think about it as a partnership, then my experience is you will benefit. So what we wanted to think about is, okay, we are, like everyone else in banking, trying to find our way around this. How do we create a future that does make the business more efficient, does make the business ready for the future, but actually thinks about what customers are telling us from a lot of the way that they interact in their daily lives. And really, at the moment, we believe that banks have had the ability to own and control relationships in financial services for too long, and customers just will opt out if the experience isn't really, really good. So we've thought about a lot. You hear a lot of buzz around customer journey and customer experience, but actually what you really have to do is think about how you're going to add value to people, Give them that exchange of value in a time and a currency that they really see is comparable with the Amazon, the Googles, or whoever, because that's now the new benchmark. So what we've tried to put a lot of effort into, think, you know, we actually have the data, we have the services, we have the full product range that most big banks have. But if we can partner, behave, and actually deliver an integrated customer experience that's much more like the type of experiences that customers get within Amazon, maybe that would be quite attractive. Okay? And the thing that really puts the wrapper around that is if you're able to give people the choice of channels. So if it's digital, fantastic. You know, we're doing a lot of work on our messaging and our chatbots as well, and a lot of people love it. But actually, they also want, on certain occasions, to be able to step out of that and go into the physical presence. And if you can deliver that in a way that's joined up, I think that's the recipe that most people in financial services would value much more than, you know, a lot of the disjointed services they get today. So, how does that compare with what typical banks do? And who's a typical bank? What you see over there is what people normally call omni-channel. Actually, in truth, they've done a lot of work in individual channels, and they've probably got a tone of voice, they've probably put a bit of effort in making them look and feel the same. But what they've done is they've embedded business logic far too much in the individual channels. And it's just too hard then. And they don't have the data to join the thing up. If you go onto the B app, whether you've got a personal loan, a mortgage, or a credit card with us, you see it all. Okay, we can aggregate it all. If you want to project your saving pots and look at how your spend aggregates and search across all the transactions, that's what you can get. Okay, and that really is, I think, a differentiated experience. And what was really interesting is the one thing that customers told me is, just give me information in a way that I can understand it. And I actually had a really interesting conversation with my 15-year-old about this, because I created this concept of, which wasn't rocket science in my mind, timeline. Just give everybody the transaction in the order it occurs, whether it's they're paying a personal loan, whether they're paying their mortgage, whether they're paying their credit card, or they're receiving money in, or they're paying money out. Just give them it in the day order and allow them to search on it. And I mean, she was really, she said, Mum, that's a great idea, but you can't call it timeline because that's Facebook. All right, okay, that'll mix people up. But however, we did go with timeline. But that one simple way of presenting transactions back in a joined up, meaningful fashion is the one thing that we've had the most positive feedback on in the B technologies, whether that's in mobile or in the web version. And what's really interesting is we spent hours and, weeks and weeks creating something very complicated called a projection service, which is, a little AI tool that predicts how you're going to actually, what you're going to spend money on. And, it's interesting, it's fantastic, but the large majority of people said, actually, just tell me in simple, straightforward language, reliably, what happens in the right order. And, that got way better feedback, interestingly, than some of the more complex stuff we've done. So, to sum it up, what's the digital transformation about? As I said, it's a journey, and we're still learning, and we've made lots of mistakes. That's the one thing I'll say to you. We still listen to customers. We recognise that speed and data are at the heart of great customer experience. We've really invested in proper people who understand UX. We team them with bankers, but we don't let bankers tell them what to do. Right? We've set them loose, and we allow them to talk to real customers and develop real experiences that are meaningful. We're absolutely about collaboration. One of the things that's still really interesting in most banks is they talk about collaboration, they talk about not silos, and they talk about end-to-end, but they're still organized in the traditional silos that really prevent good customer experience. So you have your product managers, you have your marketing people, you have your finance team, you have your technology team, and then you have this thing called business change that attempts to pull it all together. Actually, what we really do is we put people together, go talk to customers, and we put the software engineers and the change people together to really drive out a good customer experience and challenge themselves. And then last but not least, we have to create an experience that people think they can rely on. And right now, our customers are overwhelmingly tell us that technology is really important. I need it to be secure. I need it to be responsive. I need it to work. But sometimes I just want to know that I want to be able to walk in that branch, and you know who I am, and you know where I am in that journey. So that's us. That's our digital transformation. I hope you found that useful.
Thank you very much.